National Action Network is coming to you early. If you're here in the audience, I want you to get on your feet for the Reverend Dr. Al Sharpton, the President and founder of the National Action Network.
No justice, no peace. 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 What do we want? Justice. What do we want? Justice. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. When do we want it? Now. When do we want it? Now. Fist bump the person next to you and tell them you love them.
I love you. I love you. I love y'all.
Certainly we're happy you may be seated. We're happy to be with you another Saturday morning for the Saturday Action Rally. And for you that are here live at the House of Justice, 106 West 145th Street in the Village of Harlem. And you that are listening live on 1190 WLIB AM in New York. And for you that are watching us on various media platforms around the country, we're happy to be with you where the action is. And for all of you that come at 10 o'clock, you know, a lot of folk come to 10 o'clock hour. It's my usual hour. I fooled you this morning. I come out early, but I have a reason I come out early. And it's not because I see that Ponce is back. I didn't see him the last 2 Saturdays, so I know that he was saving extra money for when I take the offering later. No, I wanted to know that's my man. I wanted because I know we had to move things around because with this new rise in the variant, we put social distancing back around the auditorium and limited seating on the top. We got to take that seriously. Because, as you know, Attorney Hardy's of that vulnerable age. And we don't want to risk anything. But as we are now about 2 weeks from the new administration, where we will have Mayor Eric Adams, nothing is more important to us than what will happen to our young people in school. Nothing is more significant to us than what will happen in education. And one of the things National Action Network has been very involved in our 30-year history has always been fighting around the question of education. I think our Education Committee reported this morning. We're concerned about that. And I know we got protocol, but y'all bring them up. Bishop Herbert Daughtry walked in. Give a hand. Bishop Daughtry running up to the front. All right. Always glad and honored to have him in the house. And I don't care what we're doing, we pause to honor our leaders and our trailblazers. One of the giants in this city that spread around the country as one that has, in my opinion, fine-tuned how we have a balance in education during this era of privatization and this era of lack of accountability has been David Banks. What he has done with the Eagle Academy has earned him the respect and regard of educators all over this country. And he was not one that sought to become chancellor of schools, because if you had built what he built against all odds, you don't want to leave what you have achieved to do something that you know is going to be, at best, a difficult task. You you go put yourself in the line of fire. He's built a perch. And it's like building a perch and deciding you're going to go back to the battlefield. But if you're committed to seeing these children educated, you go back to the battlefield knowing you're going to get shot at and maybe wounded. But it's for the greater good. And I felt that when Eric Adams talked him into being the school's chancellor, and then that he said that he would come and speak at the House of Justice. We just had the outgoing chancellor a few months ago. As soon as she was appointed, she came. And she was one of his proteges. And now her mentor is going to replace her. But I wanted to come out myself and introduce him and say that this organization is committed to working with him, to standing with him, because our children are priority. And they cannot be the captives of those that claim to speak for them that don't speak to them. All of the self-appointed grassroots, for ain't nothing more grassroots than the storefront on 145th Street on Saturday morning. Nor can they be the perks of those that in the false claims of unionism don't care about community input. And the one that I think can balance that and deliver what we need for the children is our incoming chancellor. At the end of the day, we want to be able to see the reading scores and the math scores and the learning scores raised. We want to see our children having a balanced education that includes them having the access to athletics and extracurricular activity. End of the day, we do not want your ideology and your theories. We want educated, well-balanced children. And I believe that such a time as this, there's no one better positioned and qualified with a better track record than the incoming chancellor of the schools of the city of New York. May I bring you our incoming chancellor, Dr. David C. Banks.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Good morning, family.
Good morning.
Good morning, family.
Good morning.
I feel your energy this morning. I want to just say just how thrilled I am to be here this morning. And I want to, first of all, give honor and glory to Almighty God for each and every one of us being able to wake up this morning and to be here. Reverend Sharpton has been a hero of mine and someone who I have from afar really just looked up to. My mother very affectionately for many years has said, that's my Rev. And a man who would put his life on the line for us. He's dedicated his life to our community. And there's so many people, most people wouldn't even come close to doing anything like that. But for him to do what he has done and to lead for us for so many years, Reverend Sharpton, I just want to tell you from the bottom of my heart, thank you on behalf of my family, thank you on behalf of our people, for all that you do and all that you represent for all of us. Thank you so very much. And thrilled to see Reverend Daughtry here today, this morning as well, as one of our iconic figures in the community. You know, Reverend Daughtry, he talked about this story about his connection to our mayor-elect, Eric Adams, and how he poured into him and helped him to understand that we have to have an inside and outside strategy. And that was one of the reasons why Eric went into the police department and then ascended his way all the way up to the top ranks. And it's just so important that we all stay connected and that we pay attention to those who come before us and understand that we stand on the shoulders of those who fought, bled, and even died for us, and to stay connected to that. Far too many of our young people have no connection to that at all. And that's not by accident. So let me just say, first of all, I'm the son of Philip and Janice Banks. My mother and my father are the two most amazing people. I've often said if everybody had the parents that I had, we wouldn't have any problems with our kids in schools. My father was 6'1", New York City police officer, did 27 years, retired as a lieutenant, and in fact was a mentor to Eric Adams on the NYPD. My mother is 5 feet nothing and full of fire. You know, a lot of times you hear mom who would say, "You're going to get it when your father gets home." Well, my mother, we would get it from her first. And then you're going to get it again when your father gets home. My mother had me when she was 19 years old. I was born in January. Y'all watch this. My brother Philip, who many of you know, is the former chief on the New York City Police Department, Chief Banks. My brother Philip was born 11 months later. We were born in the same year. I was born in January. Philip was born in December. Some people call it Irish twins. I didn't think much of it as a kid, but when I got older, I kind of did the math. I said, "Dad, what were you thinking?" And he said, "Well, son, I just loved your mother very, very much." My youngest brother, Terry, came a couple of years later. They raised 3 boys in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. We eventually left and moved out to Southeast Queens. And we have just been very, very blessed to have loving parents who had the highest of expectations for us. You went to school every day. You came home, you did your homework before you went outside. You had your chores, you had your responsibilities. Nothing complicated, just old school stuff. And that we had a responsibility to the upliftment of our community. We were taught that from birth. And so that is what I have tried to do throughout my career. As a teacher, and Rev, by the way, most people don't know, I was a school safety officer before I was a teacher. So a lot of conversation that's going on these days about school safety and the school safety officers, I wore the uniform for 1 year at Clara Barton High School, breaking up fights in the lunchroom. And I got news for you, nobody fights like the girls fight. I was used to being around boys, and the boys, you know, we throw some punches and you break them up. The girls, it was a whole different deal, but that's another story. I became a teacher at PS 167 on the corner of Eastern Parkway and Schenectady. All right. That became the hub in the Crown Heights, during some difficult times. And eventually I became an assistant principal, and I became the principal of 2 different schools, the Bronx School for Law, Government, and Justice, and then ultimately the Eagle Academy for young men. And the reason we created the Eagle Academy, and I say we, because people refer to me as the founder. I'm not the founder. The founder of the Eagle Academy are the 100 Black Men organization. And it's important to note that, because there are a lot of stories that are told oftentimes about one single individual who kind of rides, you know, to the rescue and the Superman. But the solutions to our troubles in our community will not be solved by any one individual. They will be solved when we come together as community, as organization. And when you're part of an organization, you have a much greater chance for having success and really moving the needle in our community. And so I dedicated my life to young people and to try to help young people as much as I possibly can. And many of you know the work that we've done at the Eagle Academy. We started in the Bronx, then we went to Ocean Hill, Brownsville, Brooklyn. We started with a 6th grade and took those young men all the way through to 12th grade. Went from there to Southeast Queens with our 3rd school. Cory Booker was the mayor of Newark, New Jersey. He asked us to come out to Newark with our 4th school. We went out there, showed that we could do it in Newark, New Jersey as well. Came back into the city, into Central Harlem, and even to Staten Island. We are on Staten Island with our 6th Eagle Academy. We've got 6 schools, 3,000 African American and Latino young men who are in our schools, and we graduated over 2,000 and sent them to colleges and universities all across this nation. I'm telling you that so you have a little sense about who I am, what my values are, what I'm committed to. So when Mayor-elect Eric Adams came and said, "I need you to be the chancellor," my response was, absolutely not. I said, I'm doing a work already. I'm trying to help get these boys to the finish line so that they can be healthy, strong young men. And we've been doing that. And he said, I need you to take that work to a whole nother level and help the entire city of New York. And after some folks who I really love and respect said to me, it's not about whether or not you want to do it. It's the time that is calling you. And so I have owned that now. And I will step in on January 3rd on my very first day as the next New York City Schools Chancellor on behalf of all the young people of New York City. And I only have another minute or two. I just want to leave you with a couple of things. One, I want to tell you that the source of inspiration, Rev, for me, is the woman who you see in this picture. Rev, I don't know if you remember her. Her name was Mildred Scott.
Yeah.
Mildred Scott was out of Brooklyn. She was my teacher that I had in the 4th and 5th grade. But she wasn't my regular classroom teacher. She came and she would teach us 2 or 3 periods a week. And she taught us Black history. And she was a queen, cut from the same mold as Queen Mother Adelaide Sanford. The kind of woman that when she walks in the room, you just sit up a little bit straighter. We fold our hands in front of us because we knew that we were in the presence of Black royalty. As a 4th grader, the way that she conducted herself, the way that she spoke, she was a great source of inspiration for me, the most profound teacher that I ever had in my life. And she taught me about Malcolm and Medgar and taught me about Langston Hughes and the fact that our history didn't start at slavery. When you pour that into a young person, you transform their spirit. You transform their soul because you help them to understand who they are and whose they are. And that's what was poured into me. And it is that spirit that I'm going to take with me in everything that I do as the chancellor of this school system. I am going to work with our parents and our families foremost above everything else. The community, I want you to hear me clearly. I see you, I hear you, and I respect you. This will not be an administration where decisions are made and then we look for families that we can bring in for a photo op. I believe that the best solutions to the problems that we face rest in the hearts and the minds of the young people themselves, of their parents, of our community leaders. And so that is going to be central to everything that I do. We are going to reimagine this entire school system. I'm not here to play around on the margins. I said we're here to turn the tables over. We spend $38 billion. That's billion with a B, y'all. Think about that. $38 billion every year, and yet 65% of Black and brown children never achieve proficiency in this system. It's a betrayal. And it doesn't have to be that way. We can change that, and we can change it beyond changing it on the margins. We can change it dramatically. I believe fundamentally that the way we are educating our children is wrong. That we are not giving them a reason for even going to school in the first place. They do a lot of schooling, but not a lot of educating. There's a difference. So you can just get up every day and go to school, and when you come home, mommy says, how was school? And what do they say? Fine, good, all right. I want them to understand that the future possibilities for their careers are real. It's hard to dream of being an investment banker if you've never met one. And so we want to give them those opportunities. We want to bring to life all the career opportunities. We want to make sure that their education is dedicated toward their economic upward mobility. I want them to come off of mommy and daddy's payroll. And I want them to know that the opportunity to go out and do dramatic things in their lives are real. We're going to help them make it. So, Rev, I want to thank you for having me. And just to know that any time that you invite me to be here, I will be here. Thank you, family. I love you. God bless you. Keep praying for me as we try to change the education of all of our children. God bless you.
School Chancellor Designee, David Banks. Come on, give him a big hand. Give them a big hand. Are we going to support him? Are we going to be with him? Are we going to make this thing happen? David Banks. All right. Our ensemble. There was a principal named Adlai Sanford. Adlai Sanford was a member of Bethany Baptist Church where I started in activism. There was a young man growing up and working through the system that listened to them and heard their counsel. Didn't call them old school, but saw them as ways to shape and frame his worldview. And they taught him that you didn't start as somebody picking cotton in Mississippi. You started building kingdoms like Mali and Timbuktu. And if you rise to being what your ancestors had put in you, the blood of those that created the pyramids and the Sphinx is the blood that runs through you. And you'll be able to do things that educators all over the world couldn't do. And he did that and built an Eagle Academy. And now he can walk come January to young kids that come out of the same background, same area, and tell them, if you believe in yourself and you don't let where you start end up where you end, and you have faith in what your elders taught you, you can become the chancellor of the schools of the biggest city in the world. And those that used to call you boy will call you Dr. Banks, and your change will come. Your change will come. Your change David and Dinkins came when he reached his 90th year. We had his last birthday celebration alive here on this stage. He was the lawyer when I incorporated National Youth Movement, I was 16. We went a long way together. And I admonish many of you throughout the last year that we had not had a black mayor since 1993. With all our talking, with all our mean streets, whose streets, ours, all of that, we were not in charge. But come January 1st, we're going to have a black mayor who's giving us a black chancellor. And a black woman's going to be the president, speaker of the city council. If you quit grumbling and complaining and get up and do the work and vote, even if you got to stand in line and turn to each other rather than on each other, your change will come. Give them a big hand. Give them a big hand. Let me say to you that are just tuning in, I usually start at 10 o'clock, but I came in earlier today because I wanted to personally bring on the school's chancellor. And as we prepare for this new administration, I thought it was appropriate, and I thought it was very telling. Y'all gonna have to settle down out there. There's no more moving around in here. None. I told you, I'll tell y'all right on the air, when y'all get to fidget around here, I get nervous with that. That's how they kill Malcolm. I want to see everything moving. I don't care who come in. As we deal with the administration coming in, I thought it was nothing more than respectful and appropriate that the new school's chancellor wanted to come and speak here this morning on the air and to our people. I'll give him another hand. Dr. David, thank you. Also, we're glad to hear that the new speaker of the city council is, and she's a member of NAN, Queens, works with Phil Craig, and our Queens chapter. Came and saw Attorney Hardy and I early in the race, and she has now locked down the votes, and she will be the first black woman in the history of the New York City Council to be the speaker. Give a hand to Adrian Adams. Let me say by way of announcements, next Saturday is Christmas, and we will be doing our regular Christmas feeding here. We will do our regular rally from 9 to 11. And so if people want to know if we're having a rally Christmas, yes. We're having a rally next Saturday, 9 to 11. It's Jesus' birthday, not yours. So we'll be having our regular rally. Then break down a half hour, and then start serving at 11:30 until 3. All of the seniors and the homeless. There are a lot of people that don't have a place to eat Christmas dinner or can't afford Christmas dinner. So every year, as long as we've had a National Action Network, we've fed the hungry on Christmas Day and on Thanksgiving Day, and we're gonna do it this year. Now we're gonna socially distance. All of y'all in here today got a mask on and sitting, I hope, a seat apart. Somebody say I don't wear a mask, good, and you don't have a seat in here either. Say I don't believe in masks, good, and I don't believe in you sitting up here near me. I ain't gonna tell nobody what to believe, but I'm not gonna have people preach their disbelief breathing on me. And I don't know what you done inhaled. So let's be real clear. That we're gonna follow protocol. They got a new variant out, they say to double up in terms of those infected in one day in New York. So we can't play with facts. And I think we can all have our different, what we agreed to do, want to do, don't do, and all of that. But health is something we do not negotiate with here. So we're going to have a rally here next Saturday, and then we're going to feed the hungry. I also want to announce that many of you know that I have a new book coming out called Righteous Troublemakers. And it is a book about a lot of people that made outstanding contributions to our movement. There wouldn't have been a social justice movement without them, but they never got the recognition. If I would ask, and most of you here are activists, if I would ask you who Pauline Murray was, most of you, 95% of this audience wouldn't know. Pauline Murray was a lawyer who wrote some of the legal bases that Thurgood Marshall used in the Brown versus Board of Education case. They never gave her recognition because it was in the early years of the 50s, and she was a woman and gay. I write her story.
Oh, wow.
Most of you, if I ask you who was Claudette Colvin, don't know. Claudette Colvin was arrested for refusing to sit in the back of the bus.
That's right.
In Montgomery, Alabama, 9 months before Rosa Parks. They would not rally around Claudette Colvin because she was dark-skinned and pregnant and not married. But she preceded Rosa Parks, and Rosa Parks said she was the model of what she did. I write her story. I want people to know about heroes and sheroes that never got credit. Many of us don't know of the woman in Selma, Alabama, Amelia Boykin Robinson. Not only was John Lewis beat on that bridge, not only was Hosea Williams beat on that bridge, Amelia Boynton was tear gassed. It was in her house that Dr. King used to stay in Selma. That's where the meetings happened. And we have her story in the book. You need to have, every household needs to have this book of righteous troublemakers. And you can go to www.alsharptonbooks.com. They can guide you to Amazon and wherever else, and you can get the book. We're going to unveil the book at the King Theater in Brooklyn on the night of January 10th. King Theater on Flatbush Avenue in Brooklyn. And it's going to be an evening on where we are, state of the race. It will feature a conversation with Dr. Michael Eric Dyson and I right there. You can get tickets. They can get the information at the counter. Everybody that buys a ticket can come and you get an autographed book. I want you all to be part of that opening as we go forward. We are going to today honor some people, as Mayor de Blasio will be in a second, is going out. He has been given some honors, and we're going to really respect those honors. One of the things that is very, very important to me is that we have got to get out of this of late, I'm trying to choose my words carefully, but in the last several years, it has become accepted to not give honor and respect to those that paved paved the path and that blazed the trail that we all walk on. I never was more upset than when I was in the forefront of the Trayvon Martin movement, that I was in Florida one day doing a rally, and one of the young activists had a t-shirt on saying, "This is not grandma's movement." And I, folk with me just, go through those things and see them and don't see them. But I walked over to her and said, "Why would you wear that?" "Well, I want them to know this is a new day and da-da-da-da, and we ain't doing it like old school." I said, first of all, every generation think they new. Every generation think the old school is out of touch. Y'all didn't start that. That's why they had SNCC. Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee felt Dr. King and them was too old. Dr. King didn't even live 40 years. You didn't invent youth feeling that they had the answer. And we all grew up like that. We was all smart, knew more than our parents till dinner time. Because they had to put the food on the table. We knew how to do business, we knew how to make money, we knew how to do everything until we said, "Mama, what time is dinner ready?" And then you realize that you are operating on the prerogatives of those ahead of you. You're not there to replace them, you are there to continue them. Let's welcome our Impact Television family from around the country that's joined us now. Movements at its best is continuity, not competition. And too many of us are engaged in competition and not continuity. If you study the Bible, it is continuity. There was no battle between one prophet and the prophet that came after. It is about continuity. And when we praise our elders and give them their flowers, we are celebrating the path that we are walking down. When we give credit to those that put themselves on the line so that we could be, we are celebrating the fact that we were valid enough to be fought for in the first place.
That's it. Tell them that.
We right here in New York, getting ready in a week, in 2 weeks, New Year's Day, inaugurate the first black president we had in over 3 decades. Gonna have a black woman speaker to city council, a black man chancellor of school. Question now is what we're gonna do with all this.
That's it. That's it.
We've been complaining, we've been mouthing, we've been talking about what we don't have. Now you got blacks with power and influence coming in.
That's it.
Mayor, public advocate, speaker of the city council, chancellor of schools. Black woman announced this week to be the police commissioner. Black woman.
That's it.
I want y'all to hear me now. All of that in position. The question is, what are we going to do with it? Are we going to show that we can make this work? Are we going to try to turn on each other and become those that will try to tear us down rather than build us up? We have never seen blacks in the positions we're going to see them in come January. And some of us already complaining before they even get in the door. Let me tell you something. Bishop Herbert Daughtry is here this morning. and he will bear witness to this. When Dave Dinkins became mayor, 1989, that summer they killed a young black boy in Give a Hand incoming of Congressman forever, Charlie Rangel. When Dave Dinkins became mayor in 19, give a hand to our Assemblywoman, Queen Inez Dickens. When Dinkins became mayor in 89, first of all, let me tell you something. I want y'all to get this. There was meetings going around the city in the cycle before that. There were those that tried to decide that they were going to speak for our community. They were the so-called progressives that y'all call the woke crowd now. The question is, woke where and for who? And they were going to decide the candidate for mayor. They met in the basement of the church. I grew up, Bethany Baptist Church, and they decided they were going to run so-and-so. Charlie Rangel, Basil Patterson, David Dinkins, Percy Sutton said, wait a minute, black empowerment is about, wait a minute, we've got to also be part of this. And we ended up all going with Denny Farrell. The next time around, Dave Dinkins ran. When Dave Dinkins ran, Yusef Hawkins got killed. Some folk were saying Dinkins needs to be out there. We was marching out in Bensonhurst and they were throwing apples and eggs at us and all. And we said, wait a minute, he has got to be the mayor. We do the marching. I don't need the mayor out there marching. We need the mayor when Obama was in. People talk about why Obama always talking to shopping, because Obama knew that I was out there doing what he couldn't do. If I wasn't out there marching, y'all would want him to lead the White House in march. We put pressure on Dinkins to do this or do that. If he played tennis, we got mad, even though he played 6 o'clock in the morning and you was still asleep. If he went to a banquet, why he got on a tuxedo? If he had worn blue jeans, you'd say he embarrassed us. And then all that infighting that we did, what was the results? In 93, Giuliani became mayor, followed by 12 years of Michael Bloomberg. When we fight each other, especially sponsored by those that are liberal that want to decide our leadership, that impose folk on us to their advantage. I keep telling these so-called radicals that we are not looking for better slave masters, we're looking for freedom. Well, I'm progressive. Progressive for who? Leading the progress for who? We cannot do with Adams and others coming in what we did to Dave Dinkins and beat them down before they get in the door. Now, if they do wrong, we need to say they're wrong and hold them accountable. Yep. But some of y'all are rehearsing now how y'all gonna have a different level of measure of what's right and wrong. And what I'm appealing to is for us to be fair. We in Harlem, right here, let me tell you something, this is not an easy task to do what is being done. We have had 2 black congressmen in Harlem. Congressman Adam Clayton Powell, Congressman Charlie Rangel. Adam Clayton Powell became chairman of the House Labor and Education Committee, passed 60 bills through Congress. Charlie Rangel became the chairman of the House Ways and Means. Never had a black in that powerful position. they went after both of them because they didn't want to see blacks in that position. And rather than our understanding that they're going to go after you when you rise to power, we were sitting around there talking about, I don't know why Adam and Billy. I don't know what Charlie doing. And we lost power. And in the middle of all that, you end up getting Trump for 4 years. So let us understand, when we honor our elders, our pathfinders, we honor ourselves. And we also say we are not going to make the mistakes of the past. We're going to hold up those that held us up. If it wasn't for Percy Sutton or Charlie Rangel or Inez and them, we would not have what we had. And we need to stop being ungrateful for those that paid the price for it. Doesn't mean you got to agree with everything. I don't agree with everything my mother did, but my mother fed me. And my mother took care of me. And my mother made sure that I had what I needed. So in that spirit, when Bill de Blasio ran for mayor, and he would come to the House of Justice, and he stood with us. I remember when we marched down Fifth Avenue on Father's Day, 2013, the silent march. About 80,000 of us marched. The only candidate for mayor that marched with us in that march against stop and frisk was de Blasio. He promised right here in the stage that if he became mayor, he would be here every year, and he was. Every King Day, every Thanksgiving, every Christmas. He was here just a couple of weeks ago for Thanksgiving, and probably come by for Christmas if he's in town. Feeding the poor. He's kept his word. And when he wanted to do something even that we may not have agreed with, until he explained it, then most of the time we said, oh, that makes more sense than we thought. He would call me. I'll never forget, he called me one morning and said, Reverend Al, I said, yeah. He says, come by the rally Saturday, and I want to introduce the new police commissioner. I said, oh, great. He said, wait a minute. I got to tell you what it is. You might not think it's great. And it was Bill Bratton. I said, oh. And he brought him back. And Bill Bratton did what he said he was going to do. So Bill de Blasio called me the other day, and he said, Reverend, on my last couple of weeks, I want to honor some people who I feel deserve the honor of the city of New York. And I said, well, that's great. He told me who he had in mind. He said, but I want to do it in Harlem on the stage of the House of Justice of National Action Network. Stage Jesse Jackson named this the House of Justice. Everybody from Winnie Mandela to Barack Obama been on this stage. And I want to do it there. And I want to bring you so he can present these high honors to two people that I think deserve it, and that I think that it is a testament to his character that he wanted to honor them. A few nights ago, I was down, there was only 20 of us that was invited as the government of France gave his highest award to Harry Belafonte. And Harry's 94 years old, and they did it in a community room in his building. And he had 20 guests that he chose, and one of them was George Gresham and I. As we watched Harry, who's up in age now, and can't get around, but we did it in his building. And I was teasing him. I said, you 94, you need to get lessons from Charlie Rangel. He's only 3 or 4 years younger than him, and he's still running around trying to drive himself all over Harlem. May I bring to you the mayor for another 2 weeks of the city of New York, but always will have a seat of honor in the House of Justice, because he may be going for something a little bit higher. I don't know, just rumors I hear. Mayor Bill de Blasio.
2 good weeks, is what I can tell you. 2 more weeks. We're going to get a lot done in the next 2 weeks. Everybody, it is a joy to be here. It is a joy to be here. Because today I get to honor 2 such worthy people. But I also want to say, in this particular incarnation, this will be last time I get to speak from the stage, potentially, and I want to just thank everyone. I want to just take a moment. This is a season of thankfulness. I want to express my thanks. I want to express my thanks, first of all, Rev, for every day fighting to make this city, this nation more just, more fair, and it makes an impact every single day. I want to thank National Action Network, because in this city and around this nation, you make things happen for people. You really do. People should be so proud. This organization has become indispensable in the United States of America. And God bless everyone who's a part of it. But I also want to just harken back for a moment. Rev is right, that silent march. Anyone who was a part of that silent march, 2012, raise your hand. You were a part of that day. And you remember it felt a little lonely because the establishment, I still like to use that word, the establishment, that's a word from the 60s, but I still like to use it. The establishment of this town told us stop and frisk needed to stay, was part of keeping safety, keeping order. And we knew it was a lie. We knew it was a lie. We knew it was a false choice. And we are presented with those false choices constantly. Being told if we want safety, we need to give up our rights or give up the respect that people deserve. We are told it over and over. But on that day with that march, we punctured that lie here in this city. That day that Rev referred to when we had a debate on this stage, we punctured that lie. And it is one of many things that we've been able to do over these last 8 years together to change this city. But I just want to say before I turn to these honorees, we would have not been able to do anything if we had accepted the conventional wisdom that was foisted upon us time and time again. Right. If we had accepted the lies we were told, we would still be sitting back there with stop and frisk of our children. We'd be sitting back there with no pre-K, no 3K. We would be sitting back there with a lot less affordable housing. We would not have the things we created together unless we said we see our own truth. And everyone in this room was part of bringing that truth to light. Look around you at all the good people. Look around you at the good people who helped change this city over these last 8 years. We did this together. Give your neighbor a round of applause, everybody. So, 2 very special people today. And the first, someone I have the deepest admiration for the role he has played in this city, in this nation, in fact, in this world. In the year 1994, I had the honor of being the campaign director for Charlie Rangel's re-election campaign. And I often just sat and wondered, watching his mind at work, watching his brilliance. Because the rest of us were playing checkers and Charlie Rangel was playing chess. He was many, many moves ahead of the people who were supposed to be, quote unquote, managing him. And, but then I kind of got to the point where I realized maybe I should just see this as a seminar and a learning experience and learn from this great man, and I did, and I watched. And some of the things I hope I was able to do with this city and for the city because some of the lessons I learned from him. His brilliance, you can applaud for that. His brilliance has been clear to many of us. I also want to speak about his heart. He's often talked about having survived the Korean War and coming very close, more than once, to not coming back to us. And feeling the gratitude ever since, that he stayed alive. And that gratitude fueled an extraordinary life of public service. He had an ability to go into an extra gear and to see what needed to happen long before many others did. He is one of the reasons I had the honor of working for Mayor David Dinkins. There would not have been a Mayor David Dinkins if it weren't for Charlie Rangel, who helped to lead that movement and make it possible. Charlie Rangel was talking about the injustices in this world, including the intolerable situation that used to exist in a white government-dominated South Africa, when it was not fashionable in this country to say that apartheid was unacceptable. Charlie Rangel was one of the people who created the movement to overthrow apartheid and bring Nelson Mandela to leadership in South Africa. When people were struggling more and more in this country, hardworking, good people afflicted by poverty, no one in Washington seemed willing to create a solution. It was Charlie Rangel who created the Earned Income Tax Credit and put money back in the pockets of struggling people. It was one of the most transcendent actions against poverty in the last half century. Charlie Rangel made that happen. So I will say this, some people contribute over and over again, and then go even farther and become part of the lifeblood of this city, the fabric of life in our city. You think about some of the greats of our city's history. The people who, in their very personality, their style, represented the beauty of this place, let alone their passion to make it better. Charlie Rangel, with that unmistakable voice, that sense of humor that pervaded everything, even in the toughest moments, that resolve, that brilliance, represents the very best of New York City. It is my honor to present the key to New York City to Congressmember Charlie Rangel.
Come on, Charlie Rangel. Take his hand with me, Charlie Rangel.
Long time in park in my career, buddy.
What are you doing?
What is it about, Sally?
Right in front of the camera.
No, I'm not. Oh, I'm sorry.
So every place I go, there's a bunch of Koreans saying thank you for what happened on November 30th, 1950. He heard about this, and here he comes. Come on in, Albert.
Explain who that is so people listen on radio, Congressman Rangel.
Albert's been my friend since I came home from Korea. And wherever I go, he gets a bunch of Koreans to come out and say thank you. You would think I was General MacArthur as far as he was concerned. But kamsahamnida, and thank you so much for all that you do and the Korean people do. I appreciate it.
All right.
I know you think that I should be so excited and happy, and here I'm saying, on this great day, I am not in a position, because of restrictions, in giving you one of the best speeches I could possibly give. And I know you're crying your hearts out. So first I want you to know, all of the wonderful things that Reverend Sharpton has said. Last night he called me and he said, Charlie, what do you think I should say to you? I wrote it all out, I worked with him all night. I didn't want to blow the cover, but you did good. And I can tell you this, any black person and any white who had any fat on his head, they got into trouble with a police person any place in the United States. If they could think enough to say that they know Al Sharpton, it makes a difference. There is nobody in the United States that is more feared by cops who are infested with injustice than Al Sharpton. And George in 1199. Oh, do I go back? We're 1199. And George knows it. 1199 were people emptying bedpans. God damn, it's the most powerful union we got in the city of New York. But more than that, when it comes to a crisis in the United States of America, in New York City, 1199 is on the front line by having the doctors, having the hospitals, putting their hearts out for what they do. God has been so good to me that she's telling me now, Charlie, take the award and just shut up. But I want you to know, Mr. Mayor, that you have been good to me, you've been good to the city, and you've done so much good. And I told him, my wife, who loves Jesse Jackson, once told me, and I shared it with the mayor, that it seems like no matter what good Bill de Blasio would do, that the reporters are just waiting to find out something that they can put in a negative thing. So my wife said, just like with Jesse, that if it was reported that Bill de Blasio was actually walking on water, that they would report Bill de Blasio can't swim. As I conclude, I just want you to know that this great Constitution that was written by some good European people had no idea that one day that these slaves and people who don't look like them would ever be where Reverend Sharpton said we are today.
All right.
They had no idea that even people in Italy that were dark were going to get here. Africans and Chinese, they just had no idea. And they did fight among themselves a little bit, thinking they had the luxury of not even thinking about us, but Italians and other people, even Jews. But there was, and throughout the document that I know so well, God is talked about throughout justice, fairness. And there's no way that you could do this without knowing that it was dripping with hypocrisy, because human beings of color were not only completely ignored, but in their hearts, they did not even reach the point that God wanted, that they were a whole human being. They were 3/4 of a human being for purposes of pushing their political objectives. I had once said, when I get to heaven, I was to ask God, just what did black people ever do to her to make her so angry? And she's got to say, boy, I gave you Africa, I gave you color, I gave you everything. And a handful of people took that away from you. But I also given you people like Reverend Sharpton, like Dred Scott, Martin Luther King, Adam Powell. Even locally, I gave you the Dinkinses and the I gave you all of these things. And you can get all of this back. Just know what to do with it. Yeah. Where we are today is the new Reconstruction. Anything that Abe Lincoln was thinking about was shattered by the Klan and Reconstruction. But if you can look and if you can count, we have another chance to be somebody. And that's somebody. It's not black heroes and good people, it's you. It's you that you would know that when we leave here, the question's going to be, and what the hell did you do while you were here? And it's not going to be any reporters or television cameras. Somebody's going to be checking out what you did. And you'll be able to say that you supported Nan. You weren't able to get out there with the freedom fighters. You weren't able to really stop slavery. There were a lot of things that police were doing that you couldn't stop, but you supported those people. And you know that you made your contribution to try to make this a better world. I am so happy that I can, well, I'm not leaving this world anytime soon. And if anybody starts messing with me, I'm going to tell them, say, Pete, I didn't like the way heaven looked like it was not integrated up in it. So I'll be okay. But the truth of the matter is that we all can be better. We all can do more. We all can fight for more. Thank you very much. Let me tell you, two people I knew that never passed their Reverend Dr. deals with the highest source than I do. And the next man, God bless all of you. Thank you, Reverend Sharp. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Judge. 1199. Okay. Thank you so much.
Charlie, a key opens the vaults of all the banks in New York City, so now you can continue to redistribute wealth as you did in the Congress. I feel like we just saw and heard a profound message, and we just got given a mission by a great man. Did you hear what I just heard? Did you hear the power of what Charlie Rangel just said to us? Let's thank him because he gave us a lot of truth there. Let's thank Charlie Rangel. Some amazing things happen on this stage, Rev. That was one of those moments. Now, I get to honor a second great New Yorker. And this man, to me, it's very personal. Because, first of all, he epitomizes what I believe in, I think what so many of us believe in, that someone who started out at the grassroots, who did the work, who did the hard work, could become a leader of so many and could represent their aspirations and their hopes and their needs with a full heart. George Gresham is someone who did the work. He worked in those hospitals. He did that tough work. He struggled day after day. He was not handed anything. He did not grow up with any privilege. But he had a vision of helping others that burned in him and literally devoted his entire life to it in an exemplary way. So it's personal to me because this is what we wish for in the world, that leaders would arise who truly represent the people. And we know that doesn't happen all the time. When you see someone arise from the people, of the people, by the people, for the people, it moves me. But it's personal for me also because in the year 2013, as Rev talked about, I had a vision for a very different city. And I thought we were going in a dangerous direction, a city becoming more and more unequal, a city that if we didn't address this profound unfairness, very, very tough times would befall us, that we had to do something different. And it felt at times, what I was saying felt like a voice in the wilderness until one day, one man took a chance on me. And I just want to say there are many, many reasons for this honor. But I want to make it personal and say I would not have the honor of being your mayor, and anything we did in these last 8 years, pre-K for all or 3K or ending stop and frisk or whatever it was, if you think anything we did is good, then we have to thank George Gresham who made it possible. But beyond my own personal view is the fact that he has continued to build a union here in this city, in this state, in this nation that defines what the labor movement was meant to be. Because it is not just about the incredibly powerful work of protecting the individual members. That has to happen, that does happen every day, improving wages, improving benefits. That alone would make him a great labor leader. He has achieved that time and time again for millions of workers. But the George Gresham I honor is also the man who insisted that we organize a movement for that silent march, that movement that ended stop and frisk. That movement required 1199 and George Gresham's leadership, and he was there. And if you think back to those days, and I remember there were not long ago where a few voices starting in this city talked about a $15 minimum wage, and they were scoffed at. They were told they were being unrealistic, out of touch, impossible. But George Gresham, 1199, SEIU took up that cause. What once was said to be impossible now is considered a decent wage in the United States of America. $15 an hour is because of people like George Gresham. And finally, the notion in a country that still, as Charlie Rangel said so powerfully, does not respect people of color sufficiently, does not respect women sufficiently, and particularly gives its greatest disrespect to those who are the glue of this country, women of color. The world turned upside down. Someone had to say we will change that and we will restore and endow the respect, particularly to women of color, they deserve. And we will do that through the power of a mighty union. So every time you see that noble army in purple marching down the street, rallying for justice, that army exists because George Gresham has continued to build it, and not just for his own members, but for every working person everywhere. And for that, and for being a New Yorker who epitomizes the values of the city, it's my honor to present to George Gresham the key to New York City.
George Gresham, y'all. Come on, George Gresham. Thank you. Good morning. As I listen to both Congressman Rangel and Mayor de Blasio talk about me and 1199, I almost didn't recognize who they were speaking of, to be quite honest. I was like, wow, I didn't know I was that good. But it's such an honor, and I couldn't think of a better place to receive this award than the headquarters of the National Action. Reverend Sharpton is truly like a brother to me. He truly is. I've admired him forever and a day, and I'm quite envious of him because I don't think he knows how special James Brown was to me. And for me to even imagine spending the time that he did around James Brown, it's amazing to me. He took me home to bury James Brown with him as a part of the delegation. And I remember calling my wife from the funeral, and she said, James might be in heaven, but I know you are definitely in heaven to be there. And I want to give special thanks. They made it here. They had some car problems. But my mother, who's here today, give her a hand, come on. I want to thank her because my mother had the courage, and my father, to leave the South to come to take care of their family. They left us with my grandparents. That alone for a parent to do is a hard thing to do. For 9 years, we were raised by my grandparents as my mother and father came up here to make a better way for their family. And if you knew what my town in the South looked like, my small little hometown, Reverend Sharpton knows, because he's been there. It is amazing courage to leave that little bitty town and come to this big city to try to make it for the family. And this brings me home because the first place that I lived was on 145th Street and Convent Avenue. I attended PS 186. And in a conversation once with Mr. Belafonte, he also attended PS 186. And when we left Harlem, we went to the Bronx, and I've been there ever since. I lived in an area that's called the Valley. I'm a Valley boy. So is Cole Hasty, is also from the Valley. And Rev, we took on the caricature of JB's. We were all, my name, growing up in the Valley, they knew me by my middle name, which most people don't know. I'm not going to bother to tell you. But they also knew me in the Valley as Maceo. Each one of us had a different name of the JBs, but nobody got to be James Brown. Nobody got to be, but we were all the JBs. And I just have to tell you that we will forever support Reverend Sharpton in the National Action Network because it's a voice. It's a voice that is sorely needed. And it's clearly, when you look at his biography, you know that God put him here to do the work that he does. You know that. When I look into the audience and I see my 4 grandchildren, wow. And you know, they say nothing good happened in the year 2020 when the pandemic shut us down. But I had something good happen. I had 2 grandchildren that were born in that year. And then I look at Jace, who's 4 years old, and when we did this campaign for Mayor de Blasio, I didn't have but 1 grandchild at the time. So it wasn't about my future, it was about the future of children in New York. But my grandson is now 4 years old, and he's the second year in school because of Mayor de Blasio and the pre-K program. And so that we benefited from that and many other things. I'm not going to take you on this long journey because it's been a long journey. We tried to live up 6 weeks before Dr. King was assassinated. He met with the 1199 delegation, and he called us the authentic conscience of the labor movement. And we try every day to live up to that. If Dr. King were still alive, would he still feel that we are the authentic conscience of the labor movement? And we hold ourselves to that standard, and we will never move away from that standard. And so, I'm completely honored to come back home. Right across the street was a gentleman's club called Qualified Gents. That was my first DJing job that I ever had, was there. And one more thing on my record that I'm very proud of, and that is I get to claim the fact that I was a chauffeur for Charles Rangel. Back in the 70s, they had stopped making convertibles during that period of time, and a friend of mine had a 1970 Cadillac convertible. And he asked me would I mind driving Congressman Rangel in the parade, in both the Veterans Parade and the Harlem Day Parade. And I got to do that. Who would have ever imagined at that time when I'm driving Congressman Rangel around that one day we would share a stage to accept the city's highest honor. So for that, I am forever grateful. I want to thank God because I didn't put myself here. And I'm going to keep on to that mission because it's never been about me. It's always been about people and standing up and giving power to the people. We know we have it, and we're not going to let anyone take it away from us ever again. Thank you so much. George Gresham. And let me say this, as we have the last few minutes live on the air, both Impact Television and WLIB, you that are from around the country, if you visit New York, you can go to Lower Manhattan. And the second largest port that they brought the Africans in to be slaves was down in Lower Manhattan. The biggest was in Charleston, South Carolina. Second was Wall Street. And Wall Street is where they brought us and put us, the first commodity sold on Wall Street was black bodies. They brought us here to serve and to make this country the economic power that it became. And the reason why we are fighting now, the reason why we're standing up saying that we're going to make this voter rights bill go through, we got all kind of heat on Manchin. Now Manchin, I talked to them yesterday, is starting to waver. We are people that always had to fight. We were not brought here with any expectation other than to serve. But let the word go forth that on this day in New York City, that a descendant of Italians presented two blacks who were descendants of slaves with a key to a city that they thought we would only be maids and slaves in. Why? Because we never stopped fighting. You us as slaves, we saw ourselves as leaders and mayors and congressmen and labor leaders. We will never stop fighting. We will never give in. We will never give out. Thank God for those that kept up the fight. Fight on. Stand on. Stand up and rise up. 1199 was Dr. King's Union. When I was 13 years old, I became youth director of Operation Breadbasket New York chapter, Dr. King's organization. The year he died, the year he was killed. I was appointed by Reverend Dr. William Jones and Reverend Jesse Jackson. And we were told early as youth in that movement, 1199 was Dr. King's Union. When I was in Washington getting ready to run for president and got word that the House of Justice on 125th Street in Madison, where we started, had burned down. When I flew back and got to see the ruins that day, Dennis Rivera and George Gresham pulled up and said that we've given you a headquarters in 1199 and you don't have to worry about an office space. And we stayed there till we found and moved in this place. That's what 1199 means to national identity. Dr. King, in his last few moments of life, leaned over the rail at the Lorraine Motel, and he looked down in the courtyard. Solomon Jones was driving him, and Jesse Jackson was there. And there was a trumpet player named Ben Branch, who led a band called the Pied Pipers. And Dr. King was getting ready to take them with them to Reverend Billy Kyle's house for dinner before that shot rang out. And his last words, he said to Ben Branch, he said, Ben, after dinner we're going to have a rally tonight. I want you to play at the rally my song. I want to hear my song tonight. Dr. King never got to hear that song, but his favorite song was a song we had to sing through all of our pain and miseries and struggle. Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, let me stand. I'm tired, you can get weary out here. I'm weak, but I'm warm. But through the storms and through the night, guide my feet to the light. Take my hand, precious Lord, and lead me on. In honor of Charlie Rangel, in honor of George Gresham, precious Lord.
Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, let me stand.